all the phenomenon of biological evolution was Lamarck. Lamarck published his theory in the book Philosophie Zoologique. The long necks of giraffes have evolved as a result of the inheritance of acquired characteristics. Weizmann collected a lot of rats, laboratory rats or white rats, and he cut off their tail. He just cut off their tail. Hello students, welcome back to btosacademy. Today we will continue our lesson on evolution and we will start a new topic, biological evolution and its related theories. So what is biological evolution? By the term biological evolution, we mean that one group of organisms, they spread out in different kind of environmental conditions. They adapted to different kind of environmental challenges, and all these factors contributed to the propagation of a new species from that ancestral stock. So evolution by the influence of natural factors on our genome. This is known as biological evolution, and all the groups that have arisen from the same ancestral stock due to the result of the biological evolution, they are reproductively isolated. That means one group of animals cannot reproduce with another group of organisms. For example, if we take this population A, okay, this population A as the ancestral population, okay. So suppose it lived in grasslands. Now some individuals went to forage in forests, some went in coastal plains, and some went in mountain valleys. This is the subpopulation A1, this is A2, and this is A3. So we have three subpopulations from the common ancestral population that lived in the grasslands. Now, this population had individuals with variations which supported some of them to look for food and survive in forests. Some individual had variations in this population enabling them to look for food and survive in coastal plains, while the others had variations inside this population so that they can survive against the challenges posed by the mountain valleys. In due course of time, A1, A2 and A3, they evolved into different species from this common ancestral population of the same species. This was a single species. Okay, this is the population of a single species. And now we have got three different species by the factors or the environmental pressures exerted by forests, coastal plains and the mountain valleys. So we got three populations, and A1 cannot interbreed with A2 and A2 cannot interbreed with A3 and A3 cannot interbreed with A1. They are reproductively isolated. This is known as reproductive isolation. And A1, A2, A3, they are known as They are known as allopatric species. That is, the species that have risen due to geographical isolation and their adaptations to various environmental features and factors. Okay, so this is the basis of biological evolution, and the first person who was interested in explaining all the phenomenon of biological evolution was Lamarck. Lamarck published his theory in the book Philosophiae Zoologicae, and he said that all the characteristics of an animal arise due to adaptation against various environmental factors, and all the adaptations that an animal acquires throughout its lifetime is passed on to the next generation in its progenies. Lamarckism can be best described by the long necks of giraffes. Okay, most of you have seen giraffes. They are big animals with a huge neck, a long neck. But the ancestors of the giraffes in Africa, they did not have long necks. Giraffes have arisen from a deer-like animal, okay, with short necks and short limbs. They used to consume the leaves of trees, but in response or as a defense against the giraffes, the trees became taller. They shifted their leafy branches to a new height, an increased height. Okay. Consequently, the ancestral giraffes also tried new adaptive features, like they started to jump, they started to stand on their hind limbs to gain access to that leaves, and an evolutionary arms race started. The trees became taller and taller as a response, and in retaliation to that, the giraffes stretched their necks, and their necks consequently became longer and longer and longer. Ultimately, we have the very long necks of giraffes which can eat leaves from the top of trees. So, this can be explained by Lamarckism. One interesting factor, giraffes have 7 vertebrae in their necks. Another animal having 7 vertebrae in their necks is humans. So humans and giraffes, both of them have 7 vertebrae in their necks. But the giraffe's neck is longer because each vertebrae of a giraffe is about this big, and that of a human is about this big. So the long necks of giraffes have evolved as a result of the inheritance of acquired characteristics. Okay, so Lamarckism in a nutshell can be described as the inheritance of acquired characters. Inheritance of acquired characters. However, there is also a criticism of Lamarck. What kind of criticism? A famous German scientist and philosopher, August. Wait, let me change my pen. August Weismann. He criticized Lamarck. Okay. He said that all the characters that are inherited by an organism are not passed on to their progenies. Only the characters that are inherited by the gametes, not the somatic cells, but the gametes, are passed on to the next generation or the progenies. Lamarck said the somatic characteristics are passed on to the next generation. But Weismann said only those characteristics that are inherited by the gametes and expressed in the fetus, expressed in the embryo, expressed in the next generation are passed on. Weismann proved this point by a very interesting experiment. Weismann collected a lot of rats, laboratory rats or white rats, and he cut off their tail. He just cut off their tail and allowed them to reproduce. The next generation of the rats were all born with tails, and he repeated the cutting of the tails and allowing the rats to reproduce for 20 long generations, and in the 21st generation all the rats were born with tails. So Weismann said that cutting of the tail is a somatic adaptation or a somatic change, and this change is not incorporated in the gametes. Hence, it was not transmitted to the next generation. If due to some change, due to some mutation, the gametes of the rats which contains the gene for the tail growth has been mutated or has been deleted, then only the next generation of rats will be without tails. Otherwise, everyone will be born with a tail. So, this is the criticism of Lamarck done by August Weismann. He said that gametes are the basis of inheritance of the acquired characters. Gametes. However, Weismann had no idea about DNA, RNA, proteins, etc. because DNA was discovered much later by Watson and Crick. But during his time, he emphasized that gametes are the basis of inheritance of all acquired characters that we see in all organisms. So, this is all we need to understand about Lamarck's theory of biological evolution.